Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree. And today we're tackling the Rocky franchise. Now we're going to stick to the proper films with Rocky in the title. We're going to avoid talking about Creed and any other spin-offs or reboots or anything else. That'll be a separate topic for another day. But today we're just focusing on the proper Rocky Balboa Rocky franchise. I'm going to go through the individual movies, and I'm going to talk about the franchise as a whole. This could end up being a long video depending on how much I rant, because there's a lot to talk about, because Rocky is one of the most iconic film franchises of all time. Also one of the most successful ones that doesn't have somebody wearing underwear on the outside of their pajamas. Fair warning, and also trigger warning to those who don't like spousal abuse and topics of that nature. I'm going to be critical of the Rocky films. I'm not just going to sing their praises all day long, because while they are prolific films and absolutely deserve respect in their place in film history, they are problematic as fuck, and I'm going to call it out. But also, I have mixed feelings about Rocky, because I know they're problematic as fuck, but I still enjoy the movies, even though I have to cringe when I watch some of them, or maybe all of them, we'll see. Let's just go through the movies one by one and see what I think of them, and then I might do a ranking. How do I rank the films at the end of this video after I rip them apart and then put them back together with duct tape? We'll see. We might need some medical gauze and some IVs for a couple of these films, because I'm going to rip them to fucking shreds, but we'll see. Let's start with Rocky, which I believe came out in 1976, I want to say, without looking up IMDb. Long story short, Rocky Balboa is a bum. They make it a point to call him a bum 10,000 times in the movie. And he literally is. He does not have a job. He does not have a proper pay your taxes, collect a W-2 paycheck, put money in the bank job. What he has is two underground pseudo-criminal side hustles. Side hustle number one, he's an amateur boxer. You know, sort of legit, but at this point in history, you know, legit, but still problematic in ways, not necessarily due to toxic masculinity, but more so due to the fact that we haven't quite gotten to the government regulations that make boxing safer today than they were back then. His second side hustle is he's a shark. Well, technically, he's a thug for hire who works for the sharks. So, somebody borrows money from the loan shark, can't pay the loan shark back. Rocky shows up and, you know, dishes out underground vigilante justice. So he's kind of like a superhero. Basically, he breaks fingers for a living, which is not a legitimate under the table on the level job. So like I said, he is technically, by the legal definition, a bum. He does not have a steady paycheck. But somehow he can afford an apartment, although it's a rubbish apartment in the ghetto. Well, the Italian ghetto, I should say. But still, I mean, you know, it's got, I guess, a mattress. I can't say it has a bed, but it does have what looks like a mattress. And that's about it. I guess there's a refrigerator, but nothing else. I don't even remember if he has a TV or not. I think he has a TV. I think they make a point of him watching TV, but I can't remember if it was his TV or Paulie's TV later in the movie. Speaking of which, he is kinda sorta pseudo friends with a prime A, grade A mega douchebag named Paulie. The actor, Burt Ward, deserving of all our respect. The douchebag he plays on film, abso-fucking-lutely not. Throw rocks at him until he's dead. Please and thank you. Scumbag of the earth. But, at the very minimum, Paulie has a steady paycheck. He works at a meat plant. And he punches meat. No, he doesn't punch meat. I don't know what the fuck he does. Cuts meat, I guess. Packages meat. He does something at a meat plant. But he's desperate for a, quote, better life. And he's begging Rocky to get him a job with the shark. A job with the shark breaking fingers. And Rocky's like, dude, you don't want to do that. It sucks. It's a miserable life. And you're too good for it. Even though he ain't. And you're also not good enough for it. Which he also ain't, because he is a scumbag. He could definitely be a pro at it. But Rocky's trying to take this human pile of, dung beetle garbage and turn him into an actual human being for whatever reason. I guess they're friends. I don't know. War buddies, maybe? They don't really say, I don't think. And so the gist of it is Rocky's basically, a bum. He's barely a step above homeless. I mean, he has a, room to sleep in, technically, which makes him not homeless, but it's not a home. It's a, anyways, he's living in squalor. Let's just say it. And so he's living his best life as he can. He just ain't got a lot going for him, unfortunately. However, the gods smile down upon him one random day when a megastar heavyweight celebrity boxer basically comes across his photograph and bio looking for a schmuck, an everyman, nobody, Joe Nobody, to beat up in the ring in a high-profile televised pay-per-view match celebrating the bicentennial of the United States of America. It was their 200th birthday. And, he wants to give the guy a shot at the belt. It's an all-American story. Bum makes good kind of deal. Which gets us to our second problematic element of the movie. Our first basically being the overflowing toxic masculinity in what Rocky does for a living, as well as Paulie being a douchebag. So now we've reached problematic issue number 2. The overwhelming sentiment of patriotism, which is not bad. By the way, I'm an American. I am patriotic. Don't get me wrong. I love my country. But it's presented in a way that it's that, that false, that myth of capitalism. Anybody can make it big. Yeah, if a rich person picks your photo out of a box and gives you a random 1,000,000-to-1 shot opportunity, you could make it big. The odds of that happening? Not likely. But it's just like finding fame on YouTube or walking into a mall, yogurt shop in the 80s and getting discovered by a film producer and then becoming, I don't know, Johnny Depp or something like that. Sure, it technically happens, but statistically speaking, no, it doesn't. It does, but not, it's not a realistic, life path. But anyways, so Rocky also has a crush at this point in the series on a very shy, probably neurodivergent, very definitely antisocial woman who works at the local pet store, the corner pet store on the in the neighborhood, and he harasses her, and he sexually harasses her every day, and makes unwanted advances towards her, which she has very clearly, firmly but politely rejected as best to her social abilities. and yet he keeps technically harassing her, which is problematic toxic masculinity element number 3 in the film, which is followed up by the most egregious of sins this movie commits, using the R word casually to disparage her. When, one, yes, I understand in 1976 it was technically the medical term for somebody who was on the spectrum, but we, as an audience, one, we don't know if she is or isn't on the spectrum, and two, it's still inappropriate. The way the guy calls her that, he says, and I'm not going to say it, but he says, take her to the zoo. Blank loves the zoo. He ends up basically twisting her arm and pressuring her into a date, which is problematic, isn't it? As well. A lot of people think this movie's romantic. It isn't. But anyways, and so he takes her to an after hours ice skating rink, probably a hockey arena or something of that sort, and bribes the night guard person, dude, janitor, custodian, whatever, to let him and her run around on the ice for a few minutes while he basically just brags about how dope he is as a dude, you know, which is a douchebag thing to do. It should be, hey, what are your interests? Not, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Ain't I a stud? Which is literally their whole date. It's just him peacocking around and her kind of looking at the ground like, okay, dude, whatever. And he ends up kissing her. And I'm not going to call it a consensual kiss, because it is kind of like he pressured her into it. And then he pressures her into going back to his apartment where they, you know, finish the deed. Again, I'm going to say she was pressured into it. I can't say it wasn't consensual, but it was also kind of under duress a little bit. He's this big, scary dude who's like telling her, hey, come back to my apartment. He's like telling her what to do, and she's literally afraid of him, so she's going along with it for her own safety. But for whatever reason, the film wants us to portray this as a, quote, budding romance. And so eventually, we see her and him having a Thanksgiving dinner at her house, where she lives with her abusive, yes, I said it, abusive brother, who not only yells at her, on the top of his lungs, by the way, screams at her, I should say, banging on the door and being a total dick. He takes the turkey that she was cooking out of the oven and throws it into the alley. Total douchebag thing to do. At this point in the movie, we're supposed to hate Paulie. And spoilers, we never get to a point where we stop hating Paulie. You're just supposed to hate him until the character is basically killed off in the 6th movie. Because he's a scumbag. A total fucking scumbag. Anyways, Rocky is finally filled in on the whole, hey, we want you to fight the heavyweight champion celebrity boxer. You know, basically Logan Paul. Or is it Logan? The other Paul. Which one is it? Jake Paul. We want you to fight Jake Paul. It's actually Apollo Creed, but it's basically that you could replace Apollo Creed with Jake Paul. Not trying to be racist and saying, you know, whitewashing or whatever. I'm just using that as an allegory, you know, is essentially what it is. Although, to be fair, Apollo Creed is a legit boxer. Jake Paul isn't. So it's not a perfect allegory, but this isn't a perfect movie, so we're going to go with problematic allegories for a problematic movie. We got to go with what is given to us. But anyways, the celebrity boxer, Apollo Creed, challenges him publicly to a fight, which he can't back down because everybody in the neighborhood is now rooting for Rocky. So we're treated to our first of several training montages that begins with him begging, I forget his name. He's played by Burgess Meredith, but I forget the guy's name. The character's name, I should say. But anyways, he's begging this old dude who runs the gym where Rocky trains to be his personal trainer. They get into a fight. Mickey, that's his name, Mickey. And then Mickey is all right, fine, boy, I'll do it. And so we get the training montage where Rocky's eating raw eggs and he's boxing the meat at the meat packing plant and running up the steps, and we get the triumphant music. Da 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 da, you know the tune. And then Rocky goes to fight the big fight and gets his ass handed to him. No, he doesn't. He actually goes the distance. No, he doesn't. Well, actually, both. He does get his ass handed to him, but he just picks it up and holds in his left or in his right hand because he's left-handed, while he belts the motherfucker that handed him his ass. The fight, spoilers, ends in a draw, but technically a victory for Apollo because he's the champion by decision. Because Rocky was, the bum. But because he went the distance and he did the training and he went all, what was it, 9, 10, 12 rounds or whatever it was, and didn't get his ass knocked out in, with the second or third punch like they predicted, he becomes a celebrity. And he starts yelling for Adrian, his now girlfriend. And we roll credits and we fade to black and, allegedly a happy ending? Question mark? We get that famous Topher Grace line from that 70s show where he says, he loses the fight, but he wins at life. Kinda, sorta. Rocky, 1976. All things considered, despite its problematic elements, is still a classic film. It is still worthy of exploration and rewatching to this day. It is dated, but, you can accept some of its problematic elements due to the nature of the fact of when it was made. However, you would expect a film franchise of this nature that has longevity to evolve with the times. Let's find out if it does this. I'm not going to do a play-by-play, beat-by-beat of all of the films. Partially because I've only seen the first one a bajillion times. And I've only seen the second one maybe 2, maybe 3 times in my entire life. But let's go ahead and do our best at unpacking Rocky 2. Basically, now we're presented with the dark side of being a celebrity, being a victim, if you will, of capitalism, being, a beneficiary of its wealth and fortune, but also, you gotta do the thing. You gotta sell your soul. You gotta make the appearances. You gotta dress up like a caveman and sell, deodorant or whatever the fuck it was he was selling. And sacrifice your free time and your privacy and your family's privacy, etc. We get a movie. Long story short, it's a rematch. Round 2. We get another training montage. We get some more domestic abuse. We get Rocky in the hospital having a baby with his wife. We get the second fight, only this time Rocky wins by a decisive victory. Rocky wins the rematch, and now he's got the belt. Heavyweight champion of the world, or whatever the fuck they call it. He's not Hulk Hogan, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyways, this one, in a lot of ways, is less problematic on the surface than the first one, but also in a lot of ways at least as problematic as the first one, because it does have a lot of the 70s isms, even though I think this one came out in 1980. I'm not 100%, so don't quote me on this, but definitely came out a few years later. But we're in the Reagan era, where you gotta be a bajillionaire if you want to be, anybody in this life. And so he has no choice but to basically sell his soul and do endorsements so he can get the paycheck. And if you don't think athletes who are losers but also celebrities don't do endorsements, just go talk to LeBron James and all 17 of those rings not on his fingers because he was chasing championships at the wrong time. Yes, I know he's got a couple of rings, but he should have more, and he doesn't. And I'm not saying should as in I'm a fan of LeBron James. I'm being critical of LeBron James because in his mind he thinks he should have all the rings, and he just weren't as good as he thought he was. Not saying he's not good, he's just not King James like he thinks he is. Anyways, that's my shade at LeBron. However, at this point in the franchise, Rocky has not only earned the respect of Apollo Creed, he's also become friends with Apollo Creed. They're actually buddies now. They're professional rivals, but personal friends. Which is a thing that does happen in the business. I can say this because I was drinking buddies with the journalists who worked at the other news outlets that were technically my competition. We'd meet up at the bar, not swap sources or stories of things that would get us in trouble, but swap stories like, oh, were you at this thing? Yeah, I remember when they said that or whatever, things like that. So yeah, you can be professional friends with your professional rivals is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, so at this point in time, had the franchise ended, we would have had a nice little duology of human interest stories. Nothing bad so far. But wait a minute. Now we're smack dab in the goddamn 80s. The decade of excess. We gotta have a sequel. We gotta have more motherfucking Rocky money. We gotta get those movie tickets. And sell that merchandise. Them action figure dolls. And, the replica belts and whatnot. We gotta make money. So what do? Rocky 3. Here we come. Rocky 3 is the least like the first two movies in that this is a pure product of the 80s. Somebody was doing coke. He looked up and he's like, hey, wait a minute. Don't we own Rocky? And some other dude who was also coked was like, fuck yeah, let's make a third. And they're like, alright, what do? Well, let's get Mr. T and Hulk Hogan and let's have a fucking bash. And that's all Rocky 3 is. It's just celebrity cameos. You have Rocky coming to terms with the fact that he's not as good of a, quote, champion as he thinks he is. Finding out that his manager has been softballing him the whole time. Hand selecting opponents that he knows Rocky can tear the shit out of. Because, Rocky's middle-aged. He's getting old. Not old, but old for an athlete. Old for a boxer. But so, Clubber Lang is the hot new celebrity boxer, up-and-coming boxer on the block. Very famously portrayed by Mr. T, who was a real-world boxer, who was also a celebrity guest appearance on WWF at the time, WrestleMania. And so we had a WrestleMania crossover, or WWF crossover, where Rocky Balboa, the fictional character, is fighting against Thunder Lips, a fictional wrestler portrayed by real-world wrestler Hulk Hogan, which is our first celebrity appearance, celebrity death match, boxing match of the franchise. And so, Rocky 3 Celebrity Edition plays out. Clubber Lang beats the snot out of Rocky and not only hands him his nuts in a sling, also hands him his ego with a side of big-ass bruised. Now with a bruised ego, he's got something to prove. But Mickey dies. Spoilers, I should have said. I'm taking these beat by beat, so you should have expected spoilers by now. So, half-ass apology, but also you knew what you were getting into if you're still watching this video. Also, it's a fucking 40-year-old movie. So now Rocky has to go to the other side of the tracks and train with Apollo Creed and his crew of, we'll just say, boxing professionals and misfits and handy-duty dudes. You know. And he gets to learn how to box in a different style. He gets to train how Apollo trained. And so now Rocky is, he's ready to take on Clubber Lang, allegedly. Yes, there are racial undertones throughout this movie. Apollo Creed is a black man. Clubber Lang is a black man. So Apollo Creed is like, yeah, you're fine and all for a white guy, but let me teach you how to box like a black man so you can beat a black man kind of thing. This is actually a conversation they have in the movie. But anyways, now prepped with, new knowledge, we'll say, he goes in for the rematch to get his belt back and just fucks up Clubber Lang. Although Clubber Lang, a.k.a. Mr. T, also fucks him up in the process, but he gets his belt back. And we ring the bell and we get the triumphant music playing again, but this time, during the montage, the training montage, we're treated to the most iconic sports-themed musical number in the history of sport, period. Eye of the Tiger by the band Survivor, who is a literal one-hit wonder, and somehow they made all their fortune off of this one song, but this song has been played to death because of this movie. But anyways, it gets us pumped, and it's a good movie, all things considered. Leaps and bounds better than Rocky 2. Maybe as good as Rocky 1? Question mark? We'll find out when we get to the ranking. But now Rocky's not just a celebrity boxer and just a champion. He's also a father and a husband. And he's still brother-in-law to Douchebag of the Year, who is now jealous of Rocky's fame because he wanted to be famous himself and rich himself. And, yeah, oh, by the way, did I mention he's mega fucking rich? He lives in a ginormous mansion, and he drives a Ferrari or Lamborghini, one of the two. Can't tell one from another. And he's got all kinds of wealth now. He's made it to the 1%, or at least the 5%. Roll credits, and then the studio executives are like, hey, we're still rolling in dump trucks of Rocky money, but we need more because it's the 80s and it's Reagan era Coke-fueled decade of excess continues. So now we got to do Rocky 4. Well, Rocky was a thinly veiled patriotic movie. Rocky 2, they forgot about the patriotism. Rocky 3, they were like, oh yeah, Coke and stuff, also celebrities and stuff. But Rocky 4, they're like, wait a minute, we gotta wave the flag. This is the Cold War, and we're kicking Russia's ass, allegedly. So let's, do that on film. And so you get Rocky 4, the Cold War edition. So here is where you fuel, in the film's universe, the conspiracy theorists, because they're out there. The Russians, or the USSR, have allegedly genetically engineered a super soldier named Ivan Drago, who is the shit, by all accounts, and he wants to prove he's the shit by beating up Rocky Balboa, the champion. But Rocky's like, I got a wife and kids, I ain't into it. And Apollo Creed, who is an old man with a bruised ego, is like, I'll do it. Let me at him. We get a ginormous overflow of American patriotism. We got flags. We got flag-themed trunks. We got red, white, and blue boxing gloves. We got James Brown, I want to say, singing Welcome to America or something like that. Coming to America or something like that. And we've got cheerleaders and in flag outfits. We're waving the flag and blowing the whistle and eating the hot dogs and having a side of cherry pie. This is America, goddammit. We're going to show that Rusky who's fucking boss. And the Russian, genetically engineered super soldier, murders, literally murders Apollo Creed, who dies in the ring, and we're treated to our second funeral of the franchise. And we got some, quote, heartstring moments, but Rocky's like, I will avenge you. Wait, that's a different movie. But anyways, I think that was an Arnold quote. Anyways, so we get treated to Rocky, another training montage, this time in somewhere in the USSR. I don't know exactly where, maybe Siberia, I don't know. There's a lot of snow and trees. And we get Rocky punching trees and cutting down trees with axes and chopping wood and all kinds of shit. And we get a very overly patriotic match where not only does Rocky beat the ever-living snot out of super soldier Ivan Drago, but you hear the Russian crowd chanting USA, which is another one of the famous, or infamous, depending on your perspective, wave the flag moments in the Rocky franchise. There's a lot of them. I forgot to mention the problematic elements of Rocky 3. Those are namely Paulie's insane jealousy and Apollo's bruised ego, but also, some undertones of, manipulating the matches and things like that. And, of course, the trainer dies in the movie, which isn't necessarily problematic in any way, but it's like, it's his motivation is to get revenge on the trainer dying, even though the trainer's death had nothing to do with Mr. T. But anyways, Rocky 4, well, it's easy to call out the excessive patriotism as problematic. There's nothing wrong with patriotism per se, but, toxic masculinity and toxic patriotism kind of go hand in hand, and Rocky 4 is overflowing with both. Although, it may have inadvertently predicted the fall of the Iron Curtain, because the USSR famously collapses within a couple of years of this movie coming out. Now, I'm not saying there's any relationship between the two, but, dude bros who are waving the flag will tell you that there is, but, they're probably wrong, most likely. Definitely. Now we've made our way through the Coke era of the 80s, and we're all the way up to the early 90s. Rocky 5. What the fuck happens in Rocky 5? Long story short, jealous-ass Paulie sets himself up to become the power of attorney over Rocky's fortune and pisses it away. Either accidentally, I don't know, gambling, or on purpose because he's a dick. But basically, now Rocky's back to riches to rags again. He's a bum. And he's got to move his now teenage son into the ghetto where he grew up with his wife and his estranged douchebag brother-in-law, who he probably should be punching in the face until he's dead and Rocky goes to prison. But because he's got a wife and kids, he doesn't. Because, respect, I guess. Restraint? Should have got a restraining order, I will say. And we get a movie about a young guy who's in his prime who wants to fight Rocky because that's what they do. This is Jake Paul trying to fight Iron Mike Tyson, kind of, sort of, but not exactly, but it's the same kind of thing. Young buck who has no name, trying to make a name for himself by beating up the champ. Rocky's like, no, I don't want to do it. They get into multiple rounds of will they, won't they. I don't remember if the fight happens or not, because I know it culminates in a street fight with Rocky fucking up the dude, and then his rich-ass, trainer, don't hit me, I'll sue, and Rocky's like, sue me, and then he hits him anyways. The end, roll credits. There's kind of sort of a subplot with his son's like, Dad, I just want you to, throw the baseball with me and come to my Little League games and, I don't know, be a dad. And his dad's like, but I got to be the champ. It's the only way I can be a dad. And the son's like, okay, dude, whatever. I'm calling you dude instead of dad now. Is that cool? And Rocky's like, I don't give a fuck. Who are you? Little baby meanie me. And then, I don't know, 15, 20 years or so go by. We don't get another Rocky movie. And all of a sudden, we're blessed with or cursed with, depending on your perspective, Rocky Balboa. Which is literally the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson thing. It's a celebrity YouTuber, internet celebrity, boxer, and a computer program that, quote, predicts that aging Rocky Balboa would win in a fight against this young buck who's in his prime. We get another training montage. We find out that Paulie died, and the wife died, and the son is like, leave me alone, you're a dick. And Rocky's like, I gotta go the distance one more time. And then he kind of sort of does. Ring the bell, roll the credits, the end. That is the end of the Rocky Balboa story. Now, Rocky would make a return, sort of, as a trainer, briefly, in the spin-off Creed franchise, but we're gonna dig into those later on. Obviously, I have mixed feelings about the franchise as a whole, and the individual entries in particular. How do I reconcile this? Well, I was a child of the 80s. I was inundated, or however you say it, with Rocky as a kid. I was drowning in Rocky propaganda, as we all were. I was spoon-fed Rocky after Rocky after Rocky after Rocky, and all my friends ate it up. My dad loved the Rocky films, had the entire series on VHS and later DVD. Rocky Balboa was the very first movie my dad bought on Blu-ray. I know, weird, huh? Anyways, overall, I would say the franchise as a whole still holds up. Yes, it's got some problematic elements that need to be addressed, and I think I did the best I could addressing them without actually revisiting them and doing a play-by-play CinemaSins type scene-by-scene. Which I'm sure CinemaSins has already done, Rocky, and if they haven't, why not? What are you afraid of? Anyways, I don't watch CinemaSins. I just know who they are. I'm a YouTuber. I know what's going down on YouTube. The algorithm lets me know. Anyways, putting that aside, I would say as a whole, the franchise is enjoyable as a whole. It's got its highs and lows. It's got its ups and downs. It's got its twists and turns. And a lot of drama. And a lot of toxic masculinity. And a lot of wave the flag patriotism. And a lot of hometown hero makes good, rags to riches, etc., etc. Not all necessarily bad, but can be and is often depicted negatively in this film franchise. Or at least we see the negative side of these things, I should say. So, what do I think of the individual films? I'm just going to go through each film and give a thumbs up, thumbs down, and then I'll rank the films from worst to best. Rocky, thumbs up. Rocky 2, thumbs down. Rocky 3, thumbs up. Rocky 4, 2 thumbs up. Rocky 5, thumbs down. Rocky Balboa, thumbs down. Now let's do the ranking. The worst one, Rocky Balboa. The second worst one, Rocky 2. The third worst one, Rocky 5. And then you have Rocky 3. And then Rocky and Rocky 4 are a tie. I can't pick a winner. They're a tie. Rocky for its, heart and its, fleshed out story and characters, even though it is hella problematic. It's an overall better film, but Rocky 4 is the more fun film to watch because it's got more action and more drama and more suspense and, yes, better music, more waving the flag, more flashiness. It's got a better presentation overall. So I would say that number one is a tie between Rocky and Rocky 4. I can't really pick a winner. Just like the first movie couldn't pick a winner. Although if we had to, score it, if we had to go round by round and score it, I would still call it a draw. Stay cool.